How many of you are 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 How many of you are
Well, I think it's about to get this time to get this show started. Can't even talk straight. Let's do it.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Although YouTube sucks.
Yeah, YouTube sucks. All right, now I sound like I'm on helium. So, yeah. Figured I'd start the show out a little bit different there. I tried to come up with a system to start the show. On Facebook, you didn't realize it because I forgot to hit start the show. But if you're on Twitter and YouTube, you saw all this stuff going on the screen. That's because I kind of jacked that up a little bit. So, that's enough complaining. We don't complain in here, but we are going to analyze some people very heavily tonight. Some of these people who, let's see here, the media elites, the entertainment elites, the political elites. We're going to connect some dots tonight, okay? We're going to connect some dots about how grotesque these people are and the circles that they run in. So why don't we go ahead and we will get started. And we're going to talk about veterans and how they're underutilized. Let's do it. I hit the wrong, see? Got it all jacked up here. I'm hitting the wrong button. What am I trying to hit here? Oh, there it is. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Funny, doing this, one thing I've learned, and I know this lesson, I learned it in the SEAL teams and just about every law enforcement academy and operation I've ever been on in law enforcement and in the military, is that your standard operating procedures, if you change them, and take note of this, folks, because this is a good example. This is a web show, and we ain't got anything to worry about as far as like losing sponsors. You're my sponsors. But when you change the standard operating procedures even a little bit, it can be very detrimental to you, because what happens is you can lose complete focus of what you're trying to do. And so I've fixed something up here, and it's difficult. So I got to rearrange it and then practice it over and over again so that becomes my new standard operating procedure. So yeah, that you're seeing some stuff tonight because I didn't practice it enough. I went through it, but I didn't practice it enough. So enough said about that. Okay, so let's talk. I wanted to jump right in there and talk about veterans, but I'm going to hold that for a little bit because I think it's going to be a good example of the reality of the people that lead this country. I say lead. The elitists that are on the top echelon of notoriety and power and fame and money in this country, not necessarily leaders. I think we've been shown that over and over again. You could be powerful, not a leader. You can be super rich, doesn't mean you're going to be a leader. You can be somebody who's extremely handsome or beautiful and have a talent for acting, not a leader. I'm not sure what that talent is. I know it's a talent. You got to develop. I'm not putting actors and actresses down, but it's not to the extreme of what their egos should point out. Listen, when you're on this screen all the time, the last thing you should do is consider yourself awesome because you're on the screen and people see you. That's not what makes you awesome. Even if people meet you and they're kind of energized by meeting you, that doesn't make you awesome. Yourself, that doesn't make you awesome. What makes you awesome is if you're a good person, you serve people, you do right by people, you don't lord your power and money over people. That's what makes you a good person. I had a discussion, not really a discussion, it was like three Instagram. Now I got Instagram trolls, which is kind of interesting because I'm hardly ever on Instagram, but they don't come around quickly. Right, it takes a while because it takes time for stuff to filter out. But anyway, I put a picture up a couple of weeks ago, and this is what the picture looks like. And everybody all freaked out because they said, "What is this guy's name?" Hold on a second. Let let me get the names of all these guys, or the main guy that posted this. It was, let's see here. Stand by. Aaron Rodgers, yeah. So Aaron Rodgers posted this a couple of weeks ago, right before the game. And see if you can see it here. Aaron Rodgers is the idiot in the red. And everybody's like, well, that's obviously not from this game. That's from a practice. And I said, yeah, exactly. But Aaron Rodgers, instead of taking a knee, he posted this picture. He wanted to, he didn't want to get caught in the controversy, so he posted this picture instead. Well, it's now like 3-4 weeks later, and now this guy, Black ADA Cherry, Black Ada Cherry, I don't know what that means, but anyway, this guy, he wants to come up and he wants to start commenting on these things. And there's another person as well. They do this, and when they come up and it's funny about social media. They'll come up and they'll instantly start attacking you as though you don't know anything, and they don't even care to find out if you know anything. It's not. They just automatically think that they know more than you. So, and what's funny is, especially when they just see the picture and make a comment, probably never think that I'm going to come up, but they don't look at my profile. These are people that just think that I don't know what I'm talking about. What's even funnier is when they do find out what I'm talking about, or my background and my experience, and they still decide to shove their leftist narrative in front of everybody, which, it's just a repetitive, almost like some kind of sickness, like these people have been indoctrinated into believing nonsense, and like they're with a cult. It really is. It's cult-like. You have it on both sides, actually. And so this guy in particular, and I'm going to kind of focus this back to Hollywood in just a second and the elitists and all these people, but this guy comes on. There's two different people, and so he starts off. He says, this is another guy, Don Cucumber, okay? It says that the kneeling protest was started by Kaepernick, who was advised by Nate Boyer, a retired Green Beret. They decided to kneel as a protest because it's a respectful gesture to the fallen soldiers. Now, I can guarantee you that that is not the case, because I've seen interviews with Nate, and what the reason Nate advised him to figure out a way, if he's going to protest, to do it in a way that's not disrespectful. And so Colin Kaepernick, being the salesperson of propaganda that he is, thought that people would respect this, just like people putting a fist up in the air, that kneeling would be the way that he would do this. And then he also used this dialogue that he had with Nate Boyer to kind of further. I don't know if Nate realized what he was getting himself into at that point, but he got himself into something, and it's his problem, not my problem. I know he's a special forces guy, but listen, you got to be smarter than to roll with communists, and that's what Nate Boyer was doing, rolling with a communist. So he goes on to say, this knucklehead says their agenda. Now, he's telling me what their agenda is, right? I not only do I do my research, which we should all do, and I can't go into this, but I've been privy to investigations that were dealing with people like the Wall Street protesters, Occupy Wall Street, same people that are the anarchists, same people, the ones that put the pipe bomb in Times Square in front of the recruiting station, same people. The ones that threw a grenade at the Mexican embassy, same people. These are a lot of them kind of filter in and out of the animal liberation and earth liberation groups, same people. They're anarchists, right? They look for one thing after the next to disrupt. Now, there are people, I think, in animal and earth liberation groups that truly love animals and the earth, and they're trying to do that, but they're getting mixed up with the wrong. They should go be lawyers if they really want to make a change. But what happens is these anarchists get involved with this stuff, and they just run amok, and they hurt people, and they do all this kind of stuff. So anyway, this guy's going to try to tell me, when I have firsthand knowledge of who these people are. And I'm telling you right now, they're not people who have an agenda for good, okay? They don't. And if you don't realize that, you need to go study up on the Wall Street protesters and all these different anarchist groups, and you'll see the reality of who they are. But he goes on to tell me their agenda is to seek change within our own system. Yeah, it's called a revolution, a communist revolution. But this knucklehead doesn't get that. Within our own system, equality and justice for all. First off, there is no promise of equality anywhere in our Constitution. We have rights, inalienable rights, but the equality itself, right? Justice, yes. Freedom, yes, and certain freedoms. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, those things are not in the Constitution. Those are in the Declaration of Independence. And but equality is really something that's not divvied out by the government as much as it is by the people. Now, they can pass laws to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity to go forward, right, to be the person that you can be, that no law shall come against you to prevent you from being the full man or the full woman. But equality, as this next person that I point out, really starts within the heart of every human being. And when you have a country that's as divided as we are, you're not going to have equality. The communists know that. The Marxists know that. Black Lives Matter, started by 3 Marxists. Antifa is a communist group, so on and so forth. All these people are Marxists, right? It's all a scam. The feminists, those who are the pro-abortion movement that are high up in that, those that are in the higher-ups of Ivy League and education sector in general, Marxist. I'm telling you, as much as you go research it, and you'll see when you meet these people, you will see. So this person obviously doesn't understand what he's talking about, but equality is not, and justice is certainly not what their agenda is about. It's a revolution of division and subversion. So he says, I'm not sure where you get your information. Obviously, he hasn't read my bio, but saying, quote, before you throw out statistics, which this guy was throwing out tons of statistics, and to ignore the fact, quote unquote, sounds like you are full of crap. In other words, he doesn't use, that's the other thing. People like to use big words, big curse words at you, which they wouldn't do in person. I came back at this person saying exactly what I'm saying now. You know, the government gives out statistics. Those statistics are skewed most often. I've been a part of numerous arrests, okay, on a squad where we did ton of arrests, one of the highest stat squads in the Bureau. But guess what? We didn't make a dent in that specific crime that we were fighting because of the way our supervisor and the executives in the FBI managed this type of crime. They weren't interested in solving it. They were interested in keeping the arrests high so their stats looked good. That's all. So they get advancement. And, you know, I guarantee you I could go in this environment where I worked in before, same crime, same businesses, same illegal stuff. It is what it is. So you can't trust these statistics. You know, they say that right now there's over 1,000 terrorism investigations going on in the FBI around the country in the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Okay, that's true, but let's look at it. You know, let's look at last year's this year. That's what we should be doing. Not the fact there's 1,000 going on right now. Let's look at last year. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to stop doing all the investigations, but if you look at the reality of what all these, yes, there's over 1,000 terrorism investigations, but out of those 1,000, you may have one that's plotting something. The rest of those people, it's like, you know, their cousin over in Pakistan got ticked off because they're dating their cousin, so they called the FBI in New York City and said, that guy driving this cab, he's a terrorist. So that's the way these stats are presented to Congress, and that they're presented as though we are doing 1,000 investigations. We did 1,200 last year. It's decreasing this year. The majority of these things they end up being nothing. You can't measure anything on these at all. So the statistics are skewed. When we look at young black men it's young and old, being shot in the inner city by cops, almost 100% of those are in the furtherance of a crime where they're committing a felony, often a violent felony, and then they get into a skirmish with the law enforcement officers, and they either try to fight back, grab their gun, a gun is presented, something happens where they get shot almost every single time. Listen, the court system around this country is it's broken. But it's not so broken that you would see a statistic. This is a real statistic because all you got to do is look at how many cops are acquitted of these crimes of where it ends up being a good shoot. Almost 100% of the time around the country, when these shootings happen, it's justified by the courts. So obviously, around the country, people in the inner city are not falling to cops that are bent on murder. They're falling and being killed because they're involved in crime. Now, every once in a while, you'll have some knucklehead like the guy down in a murderer down in North Carolina or South Carolina that shot a guy in the back. That's murder. But most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, it's keep your hands where I can see them, and they move, and the cop sees something, whether it be a gun or in the case of, I forgot what the guy's name is, where he had a legal gun, but for some reason, he decided to put his hands on it or right around it. When the cop, he should have had his hands like this, and he got shot because he didn't know the protocol. And quite frankly, he had his loudmouth girlfriend there making everything worse. But I digress. So when we look at these people in Hollywood, when we look at the politicians, when we look at these activists, what I'm seeing is two things. I'm seeing people like this guy that I just talked about here on Instagram, and this other guy, he's a black Adichary, whatever that means, writes back and says, same picture. And he says, he's talking about a comment that I made. Let me see where it is here. He says, because I came back to this guy and I said, listen, if you want to be something, you gotta work and, be hard and go out and achieve stuff. And he comes back with some kind of nonsense, and says, spoken like the true privileged middle-aged white man you are. Don't even realize the advantages you were afforded simply for the color of your skin, but such is the plight of the white man. He also says, the same guy, take note of this, and some privileged middle-aged white men need to wake up. Injustice is injustice. The flag was made for a chosen few. In other words, he's saying that only white people can claim the flag. Was made for a chosen few and not the America that is alive and well today. Listen to this. You're the minority now. Soak it in. Change is coming. Yeah, you know what? I am the minority. You know what I am? I'm a SEAL. There are very few of us. And we're a hard-charging group of people. We don't like to be judged by the color of our skin, but by the deeds and actions that we carry out and the sacrifice for our country. So, yeah, I'm in the minority. You're right. But I can guarantee you the change that is coming is not going to be the oppressive change that he's looking for, which I find very interesting, that people that were never oppressed. Their ancestors were oppressed. People, 70 years ago, 60 years ago were oppressed. These people today, they wouldn't know oppression if it was unfolded like a blanket, explained to them what it was, and then they were suffocated in it. They wouldn't know what oppression is. They have the ability to be and do whatever they want. And that is ultimately what determines whether or not you are a success in life. Not the color of your skin, not the gender, not your sexuality. If you have a drive and determination and you decide, I will not quit. No matter what, I will not quit. If that's who you are, you're going to be a success. Doesn't mean you won't fail. Doesn't mean people won't judge you based on the color of your skin. It doesn't mean that people won't try to oppress you. But in this day and age, when you live in a free country, oppression is decided by you, not them. Because what you have to do is what I've talked about before. Like my old boss, Jeff Ringel in the FBI, why I got out of the Bureau. He was an oppressive, vile individual. And you know what I did? I left. I didn't want to leave, but I left because I saw that the FBI was broken, and I knew that it wasn't going to get much better than Jeff Ringel from a supervisory standpoint. So I set out to do things my way and to be a success. I'm still climbing the ladder. But let me tell you something, folks. I'm not oppressed. I was poor when I was younger, dirt poor. I think I've showed you this picture before. This is one of the houses where I lived when I was a kid, right there, right? It had a roof on it back then. It's fallen down now, but poverty is oppression. Why do you think that politicians use dependency and poverty? Because they can oppress you that way. They can keep you down. But ultimately, if you want to climb out of poverty, you can climb out of poverty. It's up to you, folks. It's up to you to continue to strive forward and be the best that you want to be. So, getting back to this now, Hollywood elites, political elites, media elites, you really cannot differentiate between these people. It's clearly evident, right? So what I'm wanting to get at here is that first and foremost, when we talk about the reality of what's going on in this country, where people feel they're oppressed, there's division, there's hatred, this is stuff that's being managed. You may not realize it, but it's being managed. It's managed by the media. It's managed by Hollywood. It's managed by politicians. It's managed in a way that keeps you from believing that you have the ability to climb out of poverty and to be your best. And if you have a hard time learning that you could, listen, I have a hard time learning, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, but I did not grow up being able to dive into books and make sense out of stuff. I had to learn it. It had to be learned in my head. I couldn't just read it for some strange reason. I don't know why that is. Now I've written a book. Why? Because I don't quit. I don't quit. I'm not a narcissist. So you're not going to get a secondhand product from me. You're going to get, if I want to paint, I'm going to be the best painter that there is. If I want to race a car, I'm going to be the best race car driver that there is. If I'm going to write a book on awareness and how to survive an attack, it's going to be the best book that it can be. And people are going to be able to open it up and learn something from it. I'm not saying that my grammar is going to be the best, but the book is going to teach you, right? When I decide to do something, I do it. But that's not what these people want. The elites, they don't want you to do that, right? They want to manipulate you so that you will spend the night, going seeing their crappy movie instead of going out and achieving your dream. They want you to buy their music, and so they don't just give you a good song to buy. They give you MTV, or they put some. This is why what Simon Cowell always talked about, the it factor. The it factor is are people attracted to you, not just your voice. You could take great singers. There's great singers all over this world. People in power aren't interested in them. They want shiny things. They want shiny things because we have TV and computers now. And I'm surprised somebody like Sia, although she's a gimmick and a great singer at that, but I'm surprised people have continued to promote her. The fact is, whether it's the news, Hollywood, or politics, what they're trying to do is lead you down a road of dependency and lead you down a road of dependency from a monetary standpoint, dependency from a meaning standpoint, right? So, in other words, people want to become dependent on the government. They want you to become dependent on a 9-to-5 job. They want you to become dependent on watching sports and music and these people and believing that that you feel the energy of their success. It's much different when you're succeeding yourself. But they want you to feel the dependency of, I can't achieve, I must be a part of the welfare recipients in this country. I must be somebody who's mediocre, and I'm never going to achieve those things, so I'm just going to work a 9-to-5 job, and I'm going to be comfortable with this. Dependent on comfort. That's the other thing, right? These people are master manipulators. First and foremost, you have to realize that. They are master manipulators. They want you to depend on them, and so they have spent, it's not even, I almost said thousands of years. These are things that have been handed down. Do you ever notice it doesn't veer far off the track? It's like if you ever worked at a bad job, but somehow you got hired, some way you got hired through a back channel, and when you get there, you notice that everybody there is weird and they're all the same. That's because people who recruit other people typically recruit not the best, They recruit. This is if you have somebody who's not that qualified in the job of recruiting, they are going to recruit people that are like them, not people that are the best at what they do. That's not the way this works. So these types of control freaks, these kind of weirdos and unethical people continue to flow into politics, Hollywood, and media. And it's a disease on this country because it's very similar to what Harvey Weinstein has done. Now think about this. Some girl or woman is an actress, right? Harvey Weinstein was a very powerful person in Hollywood. If he says, I want to have a meeting with you, you're going to be, at that point in time, probably pleased that Harvey Weinstein wants to meet with you, because I can't think that if Harvey Weinstein reached out to somebody, that people are going to say, I'm not meeting with that guy. My career's not going to go anywhere. No, they're going to say, if I'm meeting with Harvey Weinstein, I've kind of made it, right? So, that's what they did say. So they go meet with him, and he shows up half naked in his room, and they full well know, I'm in a trap now. I can't get out of this trap. I'm going to have to act in a certain way, or else my career is over with. And it's implied. If you back out, you are going to get burned, right? So when you think about that mentality of Harvey Weinstein, you can take that same mentality and you can transcend that over to media, over to politics, and over to the American people. So the American people and the true speakers and those people who want to make a difference and want to serve, we're that woman, all right? We're trapped. We're trapped because how else are you going to get your news? Where else are you going to see movies? Who else in this country is going to have the platform that these people have? Do you think Richard Fowler that's on the Fox News I saw him on the 5 for about 2 seconds before I changed it. Do you think that Richard Fowler was chosen for that job because he's some kind of brilliant, young, brilliant mind? No. They chose him because he's flashy, to young people, because, and I will say this honestly, I believe that people like Richard Fowler and Meghan McCain's are chosen for a couple of reasons. Because they're flashy and young, or because the color of their skin, or because of what gender they are. I said it, and I think that there's plenty of evidence there. Richard Fowler is as dumb as a box of rocks, okay? Has nothing to do with the color of his skin. They could have gone out and got, any number of thousands and thousands of veterans who have dark skin, brown skin, white skin, that are female, that are male, and put them on that show, and people would watch that show and say, my mind is blown by this person that's got such great insight. They don't do that. They go get some guy like Richard Fowler who they can mold into a caricature, and they put him up there because you're trapped. And so they manipulate the system to make him look like he knows what he's talking about, but really you're just being shown something flashy. That's all. It's the same trap. The same lack of ethics and morality, the same type of vile entertainment ideology that rules Hollywood with people like Weinstein. It's the same thing with politics. You've been led to believe that the only way to get to Washington, D.C. is if you join the Republican or the Democratic parties, right? And by and large, that's true. You're not going to get to Washington, D.C. unless you kiss the signet ring of one of those two political parties. Just like in Hollywood, you may not get a part in a movie unless you do something with the weirdo Harvey Weinstein, Jabba the Hutt. So, do you see? Am I making myself clear? Let me know if I'm not making myself clear. Because the reality is, we are no different than those women that have been trapped in that room and are trying to say, how do I get out of here? You know as well as I do. And it doesn't mean that you have to be conservative. You can be liberal and sit back and say, something is foul. Something is not working. Something right now is being played, and it's as if All the news agencies conspire together. It's as if all the politicians, whether Republican or Democrat, it's conspired together. It's like Hollywood conspires together to make the same type of ideological movies. Do you see what's happening, folks? We have been raised in front of these TVs. We've been raised in front of these computers. We've been raised by politicians and indoctrinated to believe that they are great and you are not. That they have the answers and you don't. That they are the ones who can solve the problems and you're helpless. That they are beautiful and you're ugly. That they are powerful and you are weak. That they have all the money and you will have to struggle for the rest of your life. You see, that is a lie. It's all a lie. They've tried to make you, in large part, successfully made this country believe that if you have color of your skin, you're oppressed. And if you have this color of skin, you're the oppressor. That's not true. I don't oppress people. I've worked with gay people, straight people, women, men, black, white. I've worked with some of the greatest leaders that were females and some of the crappiest leaders that were females. I've worked with some of the most honorable men that were in powers of position, and I've worked with ones that were horrendous, like Jeff Ringel. I have worked with people that should have been in positions of power because they were just inspiring, hardworking, motivated individuals, but they never got promoted because they weren't a part of that system. It doesn't really matter. See, those people that I just talked about, the great ones that didn't achieve it, a leadership position, most of the time they're just not interested in being in that position. They like where they're at, and that's cool. That's fine. Just like those people in Hollywood, like the Matt Damons. Matt Damon, who now is backtracking and saying that he didn't kill this story with that Weinstein, where somebody's wanting to do a story about him. It wasn't that he was defending him. It's that he was told he was talking about this when he was really talking about this. Such a liar, Matt Damon. We look now at the number of people that are coming out. So Weinstein's wife says she's leaving the Hollywood mogul. She chose a good time for a departure. She knew about this. Everybody else knew about it. I'm sure she knew about it. We look at George Clooney. George Clooney, this guy that's constantly harassing and going all over stuff about Trump, saying all this nonsense like Trump's an embarrassment. George Clooney says he knew about Weinstein. Really? So you were aiding and abetting somebody who's potentially a rapist, George Clooney? Who else said they knew about him here? Quite a few people. I was watching MSNBC yesterday when I was at Newsmax. They had all these TVs up there. CNN and Fox all talking about Harvey Weinstein. I was surprised CNN was. I look over MSNBC, and they're talking about Trump, and it's an anniversary for when he said the stuff on the bus about grabbing a woman. Is it just me, or are these people cult-like? This is strange, the way that these people think. But this is the reality of the world that we live in, folks. You have to realize that like I told this story about a friend of mine who was a model that was in GQ, a guy who came to Hollywood to try to be an actor. I used to live in California for a while. And he left because he was sickened by the fact that over and over again, he was told by these people, if you do this sexual favor for us, then you'll get the part. And he wasn't willing to do that, so he left. I'm not saying that everybody that's successful in Hollywood has done sexual favors for people to get there, but I will say that it happens, and it happens a lot. Here's something I want to leave you with, and I'm going to get off of this subject because I'm first off, just to review real quick, I hope everybody understands what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you look at the vile reputation of Hollywood that seeps out every once in a while. This is too big to keep quiet, right? So it seeps out. Every once in a while, the vile reality of what CNN and other media networks are about, because of lies, they get caught in these lies, it seeps out, but they don't make it that big of a story. Every once in a while, these politicians in the House of Representatives and the Senate, judges, mayors, governors, sheriffs, this information gets out, and they do everything they can to just kind of brush it over and keep on moving. Like the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, like all the Democratic Party utilizing people that are connected with the Muslim Brotherhood to do their computer stuff. And obviously, we'll talk about that this week, obviously have those people were stealing secrets, right? They're just kind of Debbie Wasserman Schultz threatens the head of the Capitol Police saying you're going to pay for this because she wants her computer back. That's somebody that doesn't understand the nature of her position. She should have been brought up on charges right then, kicked out of her job by the people of Florida. Thank you for giving us Debbie Wasserman Schultz. What is wrong? You know what's wrong with Florida? All the people from New York went down there and lived, and now they're hiring weirdos like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, just like they hire weirdos like Anthony Weiner up here. Anthony Weiner would have been taken care of in Arkansas or Texas. I guarantee you that. That guy wouldn't have risen to a power. Although Texas is changing, I'm still predicting Texas, you're going to turn into California. All the Californians are moving to Texas, and you're going to be just like California, where you're going to have a state full of conservatives ran by the Democratic elite. That's what's going to happen. You're letting it happen, by the way. So what I'm wanting everybody to understand is the elites across the board, and I'm using that word loosely, the ruling class, right? The ruling class doesn't just consist of the Barack Obamas, the Democratic Party, and Republican Party. By the way, the Clintons and the Obamas, lifetime friends with Weinstein. If that says anything about them, which I'm going to get to that in just a second. So you have the ruling class, which includes, for some strange reason, Hollywood, most of who has dropped out of school and never graduated college. The media, which also most of those people, believe it or not, that are the highest of highs in media, also didn't graduate college and never served in the military. And then you have the politicians. A vast majority of them are a high number. I don't know about majority, but a high number of them are felons, are absolute weirdos and deviants. All these people consist of or make up the ruling class. They're powerful. They have a lot of money. You throw into those groups the people who are just kind of floating right underneath that, or they're actually kind of above, maybe like puppeteers, the big money people. This is the ruling class. Now, when you look at these groups, there's a couple things that pop out from an investigative standpoint. For one, they all know each other. Two, they all live the same globalist life. Whereas you and I, let's call up a couple friends and say, hey, let's go get some sangria and some chicken down the road. These are people that will say, I'll meet you in Paris on Thursday, or I'll meet you in the most expensive restaurant in Beverly Hills and we'll do dinner. They'll fly all over. They'll have the top-notch stuff. Their friends are spread out globally. They have homes all over the place. I heard a story about one celebrity. I won't say who it is, but they have they will buy a home and live in it for 6 months and then move to another giant home. And they'll buy it for $20 million, sell it for $30 million because they've lived in it. People will pay that extra money. These people live all over the place. They live all over the world. And whereas your community may consist of the commute to work and the commute home, where your gym and where you buy your groceries and the couple places you go for entertainment, their community consists of the globe. So this is the common theme amongst these people. So what it may be unethical or illegal here, they're going to partake of in another place. They want to do drugs. Maybe they do drugs here, but they're going to go do a lot of drugs at their home in Amsterdam. They like to date, blondes while they're in the United States. They like to date also 13-year-olds, so they go down to South America or over to the I don't know, some other location around the world where they can practice their pedophilia. This is the truth, folks. There's a commonality between all these people. They all know each other. They all roll in the same circles. Now you're starting to see through this. Think about this. Last year, the talk was how politicians in the DNC and media elites all knew each other, all conspired together, shared information. These are the people that were leading the debates and so on and so forth, and they were working with the DNC, and the collusion was unbelievable. Now what do you see? Now you're seeing this fall from power, this Weinstein weirdo, Jabba the Hutt fruitcake that was worshipped in Hollywood, his fall from grace. And as he's falling, it's like an octopus that's got a hold of all these people, and it's being shown that he's got a hold of these people. Politicians, the Obamas and the Clintons. I'm sure there's a ton more people in politics that are connected to this guy. In media won't even hardly cover it, so you know that they're connected to this guy. In Hollywood, you know, people are acting like, oh yeah, what he did was bad, but it doesn't compare to what Trump did. So these people run in the same circles. They have the same mentalities, the same taste, the same extreme behavior. Kind of makes you think about some other scandals that have happened over the past year that maybe consist of things like other sexual deviant things, perhaps pedophilia, where one person, Anthony Weiner, gets finally, one of these people gets busted because it got too big, where he's getting like, I don't know, 20-something months in prison. He should be doing a lifetime in prison. But if you think Anthony Weiner out of this entire circle, which Anthony Weiner got set up with Huma Abedin by the Clintons are friends with Weinsteins, I can sure tell you that wherever Hillary Clinton goes, Huma Abedin is there. So that I have to assume from an investigative standpoint that the connection between Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner is there between with Weinstein. And so you can just kind of look at these things and connect the dots, that if you think Anthony Weiner's the only pedophile in Washington, D.C. or Hollywood or in the media, you're kidding yourself. Somebody wants to say hi. Say hi. Salute. All right, you good? Whole lot going on up here. Yeah, okay. You can stay here. I think. Okay. So anyway, all right, I'm going to put you down. Here you go. It's like having an old man. So there is not even a fine line. It's like a chain that connects these people. It wraps them all around. They have the same mentality. They have the same community. It's a global community. They have the same taste in clothing, taste in sexuality, the same taste in power and money. There's a lot more going on here than people being friends with Harvey Weinstein. There's people that's the way that they are. Harvey Weinstein just got caught. So that's enough. Let's go to the B block, and I'm going to switch this over to talk about veterans. If you have not shared this show on Facebook, make sure you share it. If you're on Twitter, make sure you retweet it. When the show ends, retweet it again. Maybe in the morning, retweet it again. You can retweet, untweet it, and retweet as many times as you want. Unfortunately, with sharing, I guess you can do that as well. You just have my show populating your Facebook page. But make sure you're sharing this. Our numbers have gone, the views have not gone down, but our reach has gone down drastically, which I believe is controlled by Facebook. I'm sure they're not going to be happy about today's show. But listen, you gave me the power to use this. I'm going to use it. Wow, 24 people watching on YouTube. Talk about a scam. YouTube is nothing more than a liberal bastion of leftist. If you're a leftist and you have something like Queer Kids Life or whatever that was that they have on there, that's going to get like 1 million views. But you can't put up the truth because they'll censor that right away. And I seem a little frustrated today. All right, let's go to the we only did warning order, so I'm just going to do A block. Let's go ahead and do that. Stand by. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, so here's what I want to talk about real quick before we go. And I want to do a longer show on this. There's just so much going on with this Harvey Weinstein thing and all these different, there's just so many strange things going on. The Debbie Wasserman Schultz thing in itself is a big story. You got this Drexel professor who was fired for blaming the massacre in Vegas on Trumpianism. He's threatening to sue. Man, he looks like a smug idiot. And North Korea apparently hacked South Korea and got war plans. When are they going to realize they got to take this stuff offline? I just do not understand why war plans have to be online. Does anybody else have for instance, Equifax, all the, probably a majority of our information's out there anyway, or even better, all of our SF-86 people, all the veterans out there, they had your SF-86, that's got all the information about our lives that there could be. It's a form we're going to fill out for a background check. All that information was stolen by China. Why on earth was that stuff accessible online? There should be a system in place where it's stored in a big warehouse, and if somebody needs to access that information, then they have to fill out and they go to a specific computer, and then the link is made. Like, the link is not constant. The link doesn't come up until you're given a certain point and certain time where you hit enter, and it'll link those computers. It drags information and then unlinks it. See, if that was the case, we wouldn't be having these hacks of this big information. But that's what you get in a tech world, in a shiny world. That's what happens. People don't think tactically. Okay, so when it comes to veterans, folks, I think what we saw in Vegas was a huge response by veterans that they're not part of any type of law enforcement agency. They're not part of hold on a second here. I got to get this thing popped up here. Boom, there it is. Okay. They're not a part of a law enforcement agency. They're not active duty. These are veterans. Some of them were, I guess, active duty or reservists. There was a former Green Beret whose wife died. An Army guy, or I think he was an Army vet. I may be wrong there, but he's a veteran, either Army or Marine Corps, who stole the truck and came back. He got a free Ford truck, which is awesome, from the dealership there. There were tons of people. There was a combat medic that was working with the medical team that was there on site, the first responders, doing a massive job. The point is, I think that veterans in this country are under, what was the term that I used here on the, let me look at this real quick. They are undervalued and underutilized, okay? People think in the civilian world, for some reason, when a veteran gets out, they're only worth whatever job that they did in the military. What people have to realize is that when you go through boot camp or officer candidate school or any of these other ways that you become a member of the military, you go through a set of skills where the world that you live in is broken down and stripped away from you, and you're rebuilt, and you're turned into a crisis manager, a first responder, somebody that knows how to triage situations. Now, not every veteran is going to be great at this. Some people, it's a pump and dump skill. Other people, like myself, it gets ingrained in the very being of which they are. And I think that this country picks people that are unqualified for jobs based on the color of their skin or their gender or their sexuality so that they make things fair, when they should be seeking people that are veterans to fill these jobs. maybe then it would be more popular to be in the military. I still don't understand why we have a quota that says we can't take any more than these people in the military. The budget should be set in the way that whoever wants to go in the military can go in there. Look, I'd even say transgender, gay, flat-footed, asthmatic. If you got a medical problem, you don't deploy. You set your ass over here and you do. Look, you're still serving. But maybe you work in the computer field and you never leave. Maybe your job is to, I don't know, answer phones somewhere. But if you want to be in, that's what you should do. If you're medically dependent, though, there's only so much you could do. However, what about the people that don't do good enough on the ASVAB test? How about you take that test when you're in high school, and if you fail it, but you really want to go in the military, then the schools have a certain way to get you up to pace on the ASVAB so you can pass that and get in. I just don't think that anybody that wants this, I believe in mandatory military service. That's probably never going to happen in this country. I believe everybody should serve 2 years. There's plenty of places for them to serve. But I don't understand why we have a limit on the amount of people that want to serve. Maybe if we change that, people would start to see, which Dave Robinson came on this show one time, was talking about how when everybody shaves their heads when boot camp, they're all the same. And then after a couple of weeks when they get leave, everybody, one guy's wearing a cowboy hat, the other guy's wearing a scarf like a gangbanger. Everybody, their personalities come out. But the thing about them all at that point is that they're all crisis managers. They all know how to task organize. They all know how to streamline operations. They all know how to look for operational readiness and force protection, and it's ingrained in them. So what I don't understand is why law enforcement, like I believe it is in Nashville, the police department there, a buddy of mine who was a SEAL, just got out of SEAL training, could not get a job with the Nashville Police Department because something that was on his record when he was 16. Because the Nashville Police Department has a policy that you can never have been arrested. So you're telling me, Nashville, that somebody gets arrested when they're 16, and then this guy is 40 years old and been a SEAL and in the military for over 20 years, and he retires, and you're not going to hire him, but you will hire somebody who's not qualified for the job but has dark skin or is a woman, just because you're trying to fill that quota. What kind of sense does that make? Veterans who have this skill set are being ignored. They're not being valued. They're not being utilized by the American public. They're not being utilized by the government in the right way. The government, when somebody gets out of the military, whether they've been in 2 years or 20 years, the government should be trying to place these people in other jobs within the government so they don't lose their specialties. And it shouldn't be something like, yeah, we'll put you behind a desk over here. It should be, we need a program manager. We need somebody that we can, for Homeland Security, for instance, or the FBI. The FBI, okay, perfect example. And what's crazy about the FBI, you got people like Jim Gagliano, who's on CNN now, who was another one of these Jeff Ringel types. There's a whole crew of people that were in the New York office that were like this. They crap all over other veterans. They don't care at all. They loved their little kingdom, and they loved their little popularity that was in their minds, and they walked around like they're badasses. And so I'll tell the story. I went out for SWAT. After, I don't know, it was like 3 years of being at the Bureau, I go out for SWAT, and there was like 40-something people that tried out, and I know I did good because I know I was fully qualified for the job. In fact, I don't even think people with my skill set should really have to qualify. They should just be, if you want to join, okay, you come on, and then you go through the process of training with everybody so you get their skill set down and their standard operating procedures, their tactics, techniques, and procedures. It'd be no different than if, you're an attorney, a practicing attorney, you go in the FBI, and you say, I want to be in the legal division. They're like, oh, you're a certified attorney? Come on. Because you got the skill set. But that's not the way it is in SWAT, especially in New York, but all over the FBI and all over the country. You got people who get in there, and if you're not one of their own, if you're somebody who may be smarter than them in certain things, they don't want you in there. So I go blow out this freaking tryout, and they say when the Matrix comes back, they got this spooky Matrix that they put all the stuff on. I came in 8th, and they only chose 7. Sorry. Now, I know for a fact, one of the guys that they chose that day, he has terrible feet and can't run. Great guy, but broken. Another guy was his 3rd time trying out and was injured during the tryout. They still picked him. I mean, it could go on and on. On and on. The point was, and I took this profoundly, and I was told by somebody on there, if you try it again next time, you'll probably make it. Because they want to humble you. That's what I was told. Well, I'm not going to be humbled. I'm a humble person. But see, in the Bureau, this was SWAT in general, right? But in all of the Bureau, they don't recognize veterans for their skill set. They will pick somebody who has a Harvard degree and no experience in life to do something and put them in a position of authority because they got this degree from Harvard, but they don't recognize how special a veteran actually is. Now, if the FBI is this sick, then you can just imagine how the rest of the country is, where people that have some kind of weird perception of what the military is, that we're just some dumb fighting force that we just sit on, like we're the watchers on the wall for people who watch Game of Thrones, like we're all bastard children who couldn't get a job somewhere else, so we go in the military and then we just wait for war, and if we get killed, listen, we'll wave the flag and thank you for your service, but otherwise you're not really worth anything to us because we have higher degrees, or we started this company, we know more than you do, or whatever. The fact is that the federal government doesn't understand and utilize the very people that they have created, the very subject matter experts, the very crisis managers, the very first responders and task organizers and experts in standard operating procedures. They don't even recognize the quality that they have. They'll just let them go and never even bother with them again. Forget the VA. What about utilizing these people? Schools, you could have amazing teachers if you started recruiting veterans and say, would you like to be a teacher? We will pay for your education. Are you kidding me? Do you know how that would repay your community? The communists in the educational sector would hate it, but you would have, first of all, you wouldn't have all these school shootings, that's for sure, if the majority of people teaching were veterans. And I even recommend this for people. I don't care if you're a girl or guy. You want to be a teacher? Go enlist in the military for 4 years, do a 4-year stint, then go be a teacher. You will see everything completely different. You'll be able to handle these children different. You'll be able to monitor things different. You'll have standard operating procedures and identify on how these things work. But they don't do that. The schools don't do that. The government doesn't do it. Private sector doesn't do it. Private sector hires. I've heard stories from people that work on Wall Street. I've heard stories of bosses that are just as bad as Jeff Ringel and the rest of these people that were bosses in the Bureau. I've heard stories about absolute weirdos who basically are driving their company into the ground, their bank into the ground, but their bosses above them are inept, and they hire inept people. You could be hiring veterans and saying, we're going to send you to college. We're going to pay for your 4-year degree. In 4 years, you're coming back here. Or we'll help you get it online, and you're going to learn the system while you work here. We're going to build you just like the military built you to be a war fighter. We are going to, because you have the skill set to understand and learn, we're going to make you the ultimate financial advisor, the ultimate banker. They don't do that. I can't understand why this isn't the case. And I think law enforcement, especially, law enforcement, paramedic or fire departments, for instance, you want to know why listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The FDNY has a reputation in law enforcement of having some people that aren't quite up to snuff. Now, I like the FDNY, and I've met some tremendously amazing men on there. Next to being a veteran in the military, the way firemen across the board in this country and probably the world, the way they attack fires is very similar. They have to work in a very similar fashion. But why isn't the fire departments seeking out veterans? Why isn't that their highest priority? Seek out a veteran. The more veterans you get in there that are qualified, not just because they're a veteran, but because they have that on their resume, you're going to have a better qualified group of a better qualified team. I know myself, I'd rather be worked on by a doctor who was a veteran than a doctor that just went to medical school. I can't understand why this country has allowed their veterans to become secondhand citizens and completely ignore not just a sacrifice thing. Yeah, they make a sacrifice. Okay, good job. You made a sacrifice. But what about the skill set that they've become, the mental anguish that you suffer when you go through training, the ability to overcome such great obstacles and work in a team? I don't understand how this is consistently ignored in this country and underutilized. It doesn't make any sense to me. What Vegas Police Department should take away from what happened the other day, and what this country should take away, and I'll leave you with this, and somebody knows President Trump, get this to him. Veterans, when it comes to identifying where the threat is, when it comes to triage in a situation, when it comes to assisting the police. Listen, I was a cop, okay? I was a cop. I was an FBI special agent. I was a federal air marshal. I know the reality of that job. But you should have relationships with veterans. And if a veteran comes up to, or not just comes up to you, you should almost have like across the board around this country where if you're a veteran, you can sign up for this and you get you get a badge, you get some training, you become a reserve officer, a United States Reserve officer. In other words, if you join this group, you don't get paid, you get your creds, you get to carry a weapon. And wherever you are in the country, if something happens, you go up, you say, I'm a United States Reserve officer, and you're in the stack. Do you know how many veterans are qualified for that, first of all, and how many veterans would volunteer to do that? Do you know how many veterans would train for free to do that? You want to put, you have some place like Chicago where killing is out of control. You call up for volunteers that are certified United States Reserve officers. They go there and they populate every single block in Chicago. You could do it. Veterans would do it. Maybe you pay them when they go to those special things, right? Or let's say you start having heavy threats on airliners, right? You call up the United States Reserve officers and you say, okay, we got a 2-week stint here. We're going to pay, I don't know, $250 a day. Boom. They're going to be, you could put them on every flight for 2 weeks. I don't understand why we don't have something like this, why we don't think outside the box in this country, and why we allow highly educated, collegiately educated people to set the standards and to come up with the ideas when they've never even done this stuff. Why do non-doctors set policies in hospitals? Why do politicians and not people who are sick come up with the guidelines for what we need in healthcare? Why do we allow police chiefs and sheriffs who were bad at their job to begin with and were politically minded but have never been in a wartime environment? Why are they? And same thing with SWAT. Going through a door to serve a warrant is totally different than how you should set up defenses to counter snipers. Okay? Not all SWAT, and I'm telling you right now, SWAT's day, in my mind, is over. We should be training the total officer in this country. Police officers should be trained to be fully well-rounded. You could reduce the number of officers and increase the effectiveness if you did that. Train the total officer. That should be something that goes, listen, if I was president, all these things would be in place right now. We would have a United States Reserve force of police officers that were veterans that are that are capable, and probably former law enforcement officers as well, they could be a part of that, but a reserve force that is not paid unless it's a special assignment. You could have literally hundreds of thousands. I would even pay for my own badge and in my own gun if they said, yeah, you're going to get sworn in, but you got to buy your own badge. You're not getting paid for it unless there's a special assignment, and you got to start, have your own gun. When you qualify on the range, you got to pay for your own bullets. I would do that. And I know thousands of people that would do that. Why aren't we utilizing these veterans in these types of ways? I'm profoundly disturbed by this. And if I was in charge of this country, you would see this type of stuff. Not only does it increase the ability to have force multipliers, but it also creates a sense of community. You create a veteran and then you kick them out of the military. You know what that does? It means you served your purpose. We don't need you anymore, and you're no better than anybody else. And that is just not true. So I hope that someday some politician, some leader comes along, whether it be a sheriff or the president or somebody, that across the board says, we need to consider this. We need to think about these people. We need to utilize their skill set somehow, some way. They're there. They're just waiting to be used. CQRF. All right. Yeah. Somebody says because coming out of the 1960s, the left started writing the rules. Absolutely. Let's take a breath and go to the truth zone. And for the, never mind. Let's go to the truth zone.
Let's go to the truth zone. Yeah!
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen because I thought I had a glitch. All right. I got to clean this thing up. Too many glitches. All right, numbers were low tonight. Can't do anything about it now. Make sure you share and retweet, especially on Twitter. If you're retweeting this thing over and over again, they'll get more and more views. We'll have thousands of views. So, what have we discovered here tonight? Well, when you look at the elites in the ruling class, it's not just the politicians. It's also media. It's also Hollywood. It's also big money people. And they live the same lives. They have the same taste, the same sexual preferences, the same community that they exist in. It's a global community. They have the same morals and ethics, as we can see by George Clooney, who goes around talking about President Trump being a weirdo, but yet he was okay, evidently, with what Weinstein was doing and didn't make a fuss about that. Same thing with Matt Damon. Same thing with the Clintons. Same thing with the Obamas. I'm sure that there's plenty of Republicans that were associated with Weinstein. It all boils down to this, folks. If we don't, and I don't know if this is ever going to change, but if the American people don't start taking the lead in this stuff, it's very interesting, because when you look at what the communists always preach, that the working class is the one that should rule, and ultimately the working class is the one where that synthesis will happen. They're the last people that will ever cause that, because here's the problem with communism. We call it the middle class. They called it the working class in anywhere communist. But here's the truth. The working class, the middle class, they do exactly what the title says. They work. They are the people that get out there and make things happen in this world. They feed you. They build your cars. They deliver your babies. They preach your sermons. They teach your children. You are the working class. And unfortunately, when you are the working class, it becomes very difficult. At least this is what you've been told. Even though now that we have smartphones and internet and things, it's become more difficult for you to assimilate into one group of people. It's been more difficult for you to reach out and have large groups of discussion. It's become more difficult because you've become more divided, and that is by design. These people, these global elitists, these ruling class members, powerful and rich, they do nothing to help you. They do nothing to improve things. You are like in the Matrix. You're their batteries, like in the machines in the Matrix. They had, the humans were their batteries. It is time, not for a revolution, for a revolution. And it is time for the American people, as I say every night, to unify. I will continue to say this. Dialogue, unity, strength. That is what you're going to get. If we all stand together. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My buddy Rico's over there. Remember, strength comes from unity, which comes from dialogue. It starts here. This is the experts. The truth has arrived. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.